Attention! Attention! We are heading into a process that has been rigged by a corrupt and unaccountable leadership that has disenfranchised and excluded GOP voters at every turn. From canceled meetings, to secret ballots to install unqualified candidates, to multiple violations of the plan of organization, to lawfare and smear campaigns against conservative candidates and their staff, and most especially, the illegitimate removal and replacement of precinct chairs. Precinct chairs will determine the outcome of this election because they will guide the selection of delegates. Only delegates can vote. According to my sources, 12 precinct chairs are now filled by people not living in the precinct, and 10 have been appointed through incorrect procedures. 22 out of 43 precincts are therefore potentially compromised. You can stop this injustice. You can assert your right to represent your precinct where you live. You can campaign within your precinct to be selected as a delegate. We have the votes to overcome their crooked procedures. Come to the county convention tomorrow night. Assert your voice. Assert your right to represent your community. Assert your right to choose the path this county takes, and we will be victorious.
Bathroom's finished, I says. When you know, that's when the drain clogs up. Gotta clean some of this gunk out. Feels like a metaphor, don't it?
I don't want to blow anybody's mind, but politics is about policies. And in a representative system, the polity is the group of people who debate the policies. Or maybe not. What's my point? I woke up a year ago and realized that the children of New Hanover County were under attack. They were being bombarded daily by a racist Marxist ideology that was designed to destroy their bodies, their minds, and their souls. An ideology that is designed to divide them into identity groups, to separate them from their families, from their traditions and culture, even from their own identity, to negate their personhood and reduce them to a label. I woke up on the morning of November 9th, and still the children of New Hanover County were under attack. They were being taught not to think, but to obey, not to analyze, but to trust the experts. They were learning not the value of free speech, but an ever-growing list of prohibited speech. They were learning not open-mindedness and tolerance, but prejudice and intolerance. Instead of being trained in open debate, they were being trained to attack, smear, and report on one another. And through punishment and shaming and being ostracized, they were being trained to be completely dependent upon an unaccountable central authority which tells them what is right and what is wrong, but never explains it. Fortunately, I woke up this morning and found that the most active Republicans in the county were busy labeling each other as Democrats on Facebook at the direction of experts from the state level, while the county leadership shamelessly worked to disenfranchise registered Republicans at the upcoming convention. Now, some of you have objected to my calling Jonathan Q. Bridges a fat tick. Ashley, aren't you just name-calling? No. Aren't you fat-shaming? No. It is a metaphorical and accurate description of what he is and what he does. A fat tick is a tick that is swollen with the blood of its host. In this case, yours. And the very practical policy reason for telling you this is that we have been told a lie, that we need experts like Jonathan Q. Bridges to tell us how to run our campaigns and to give us access to the state level. And when I say policy in this case, I mean it in the general sense of a custom or a habit which is strictly adhered to. As in, we should break the habit of relying on expensive experts with connections to the state level and make it a policy to rely on the great untapped resources within our community, our family, our friends, our colleagues, our network of community-minded conservatives who are motivated by service to this county and not by money. After all, one of the reasons Wayne Gibson tells us we can't be as conservative as we want to be is because we won't be able to raise the big money from the big donors. And if we can't raise the big money from the big donors, how are we going to hire an expensive, fancy campaign manager who has experience in Raleigh? What exactly do those people do, though? And how much is it worth? Let's check it out.
This is an image from a Facebook post on the New Hanover County Republicans page.
Yes, I find it absurd and demeaning to you and me and to everyone in the county that I have to be reporting on what happens on a Facebook page. But this is the distraction we must extract ourselves from. Therefore, I need to dig into it a little, and I apologize, and I find it just as icky and pathetic as you do. Let's go on.
This is an email that New Hanover County Concerned Citizens Chair Diane Zaricki sent out to her membership after the school board had voted to end seclusion and out-of-school suspensions for children under 8. This had been a long-term policy goal of the NHCCC and many conservative and liberal parents in the county. And the NHCCC's campaign of emailing all the school board members, Republican, Independent, and Democrat, had been instrumental in the win. It was what they call in the business a bipartisan win for the community.
Now, to give Jonathan credit, in his response to this post, he showed himself to be sophisticated, gracious, and intelligent. Thank you, Diane, for demonstrating that even in these polarized times, if people just have the courage to talk to one another, where they have common ground, progress can be made for the community. Whenever our children are involved, it is most important to find a way to set aside our differences and unite on policy solutions that make sense and keep them safe. You know what? I shouldn't recite it. I have it here. Let me show it to you.
Oh no. No, this is different than I remember. This is submental. He's doing that thing that we're so angry that they're teaching our kids, which is to focus on labels and not on policies and ideas. And he's doing that other thing that we're so angry that they're teaching our kids, which is to be blindly obedient to authority and not hold it accountable by speaking truth to power. Man. I just hope Josie didn't spend too much money on him as a campaign consultant. $27,770? You spent 2/3 of your money on this?
You have been called a Democrat, and you have been called disloyal, and you had your picture taken standing next to another candidate at the polls on Election Day. Busted! This is very high level, state level, expert stuff. And there's no partial billable hours, so I'm just going to give myself $250 for the afternoon's work. Okay, time to stretch the old thumbs. Gotta stay loose. Politics. Now, I'm not making fun of Jonathan Q. Bridges. I'm not just making fun of Jonathan Q. Bridges. That last one about the picture, that was Brad Walter the day after the primary. That's right. I met him, and he promised me that he was going to release proof that Melissa was campaigning for Democrats. And the very next day on Facebook, where all the important discussions happened, guys, there was a picture of Melissa at the polls on Election Day next to another candidate at the polls on Election Day. The point is, when you give money to Jonathan Q. Bridges or to tide turners, understand what you're paying for. The next question, of course, is, if that's what you're paying for, what's it worth?
So as conservatives, I think we should be concerned about ROI. Barnhart spent $24,000 more than Mason on consulting and $26,000 more than Wildeboer on consulting, although I think most of that spend at Lamar Advertising was just for signs. And for it, she got 20 more votes than Mason and 440 fewer votes than Wildeboer. All of the top finishers, regardless of what they spent on consulting or how much they raised in total, were separated by less than a percentage point.
And voila! The "we can't win without appeasing big donors" cudgel is removed from the hands of the Wayne Gibsons of the world, because it turns out we don't even need the big money, and we definitely don't need the help of high-paid experts like this guy, who doesn't know how to use the word indecisive. See, Jonathan, she identified a policy goal and then she took action on it and achieved it. She made a plan and executed it. And when she was done with it, she tied a little bow on it because she had already decided to prepare for the next plan. And I come back to Jonathan because I want to make it absolutely clear what his actual function is in our little political ecology here. His function is to take your money so that you can't achieve your policy goals. Notice exactly what's being punished here. What's being punished here is the unforgivable sin of people with shared interests talking to each other. NHCCC has a policy success that will make the lives of children in this county measurably better, and his reaction is to immediately lambast them for the crime of consorting with the enemy. Except they're not on that policy. This is a classic divide and conquer tactic that rich and powerful people have been using against the common folk since time immemorial. They trick people who have shared interests into demonizing one another, so much so that they won't even talk to each other. And since they can't talk to each other, they can't plan how to fix the mess they're in. I have been successfully labeled by the national media as a right-wing zealot. Not personally, but as many of you know, once your family members or friends or colleagues find out that you voted for Trump, that's it, man. You can't talk about nothing. I can't tell my brother about the medical tyranny hellscape we're already in, and that's getting worse. Vital issue we can't discuss because I've been successfully labeled. And in this party, there are people who agree on 95% the same policy goals, who get so wound up tossing labels at each other online that they can't even look each other in the face when they come into the room. And this is by design. And one of the people turning that wheel is Jonathan Q. Bridges. That's his role. And your kids have been successfully labeled as either oppressors or victims, and they've all been given their own prepackaged grievances that they have against the other group so that they will be trained to isolate and never talk. Which brings me back to the other interesting thing about this chart. If we don't need the big money to win, what is the big money for? Put another way, who on this chart is most likely to be beholden to the people in the county who want to shut down open debate within our party?
How do each of you plan to combat the people within this room and the Republican Party that constantly throw rocks at elected officials that are Republicans, that constantly throw rocks at us, the candidates, while they're running after the primary, between the primary and the general? How do you plan to combat that?
I've teed off on a lot of people in these videos, but I don't exclude anyone in the community, including myself. We have bad habits of communication. There's extraordinary energy in this community for bickering online and for gossiping behind people's backs. But when it comes to having face-to-face public debates about contentious issues within the party, there's a deadly reticence within this party that masquerades as politeness. There are certain uncomfortable things that need to be spoken about. There are certain things that are problems that need to be addressed. And even the people who chafe against the gossip and the backbiting and the procedural legerdemain to remove people from the process and getting law enforcement involved to kick people out, even those people participate in it. I know for a fact there are people in this community who have photographic evidence of the $8,000 that went missing from the building fund. Someone has to be held accountable for that. And if one must sacrifice one's comfort when dealing with the other people in a social situation, that's the price. Why can't we talk about this? This podcast is an interview show. See anybody else here? No. Because even the people who are on my side of things who wanted to come on the podcast didn't want to come on the podcast too close to the election. They don't want to share their stories before the election. They don't want to talk before the election. That's the time to talk. Before the election. That's our big beef with early voting, guys. Do you remember Pennsylvania when all those people found out that Biden was going to shut down the oil industry? And there were all these people Googling, can I change my early vote? No. And the thing you should have said publicly before the election does not have the same effect after the election. It's the Hunter Biden laptop, guys. The FBI had it for 19 months before the election. If you're pissed that they waited till after the election to reveal it, maybe start speaking up now. This party is ill. The leadership is consistently disenfranchising registered Republicans and controlling the path of this party. And frankly, they're doing everything they can to serve the uniparty interests and not the principles of our party. Tuesday's going to be an amazing day. And if you're just coming to this, if you're new to this, let me tell you what's up. We're going to have 700 people at an event that got 200 or fewer people last year. They're not all going to be there because they want things to be the same. Those people want change. This party needs change. And the votes are there for the change. And what you have to do is you have to show up and make sure that you're a delegate. Say, I want to be a delegate, because the precincts are all going to get together and we're going to choose who our delegates are, and only the delegates vote. So if you want to be part of the change that needs to happen in this county, you need to make sure you get real vocal when you get to your precinct area at the convention about your desire to be a delegate. That's the first thing you need to do. The second and more important thing you need to do is witness. It's going to be a great day for participatory government because all of you will be there. You will feel the energy of people who care about their community and willing to sacrifice their time and energy. You are also going to witness an entrenched, cynical, corrupt, unethical power structure doing everything it can to disenfranchise the will of its own voters and to keep that change from happening. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but whatever happens, you're the witness to it. Pay attention. Have your phones ready. Listen. Remember. But whatever happens, as long as we witness it, we get the opportunity on Tuesday to see how things really work. We see what the task really is ahead of us. So there's still time to do a lot of important talking before tomorrow. Do that talking. And then on Tuesday, there's going to be a lot of important talking to be done in a very short amount of time. And don't you let that deadly politeness get in your way. Don't be afraid to be assertive. Be polite, but don't be meek. Don't try not to rock the boat. The boat needs rocking. This is the last teaser in the series. Episode 7 is the convention. Now, I don't think I'll be able to record during the convention, although I'll try if I can. They probably have some rule about it. You know, transparency is not their strong suit. But I will be recording outside and maybe in the lobby in the open time. I'm looking forward to that. We should have the full episode out after the event. And just remember, guys, the time for action is now.